The interpersonal connections between the reader and the author, William Butler Yeats, is especially evident through the portrayal of Yeats's inner turmoil as he presents a paradoxical assessment of the nationalist 1916 uprising and its consequences. It highlights the importance of maintaining a personal connection between the reader and the text in order to develop a more informed understanding of the author's meaning. In Easter 1916, Yeats presents his personal preoccupations of change through symbolism and natural imagery. He portrays the stone as a symbol of permanence and the stream as a symbol of change, as Ireland is enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream, whereby Yeats maintains that the Irish people remain afraid of change and should pursue change. This can lead to a rigid view of truth, a notion juxtaposed by Yeats's yearning for a newfound source of knowledge. We know they dream enough to know they dreamed and are dead. Yeats stresses the importance of remembering the fallen rebels who fought for their self-perceived notions of freedom and truth. Additionally, Declan Clyburn reciprocates Yeats's political and contextual notions, suggesting that without the stone, Ireland, in its fixity, no ripples could vibrate at all. Such notions additionally have varying impacts on the reader. Amongst the Easter uprising, the deaths of the rebel leaders in Dublin act as an impetus for Yeats's sympathetic shift to the cause of the rebel fighters, MacDonald and McBride, and Connolly and Pearce, now and in time to be, wherever green is worn. The use of the extended metaphor and the glorification of death as the embodiment of a luscious green of a renewed Ireland is further reinforced through Yeats's repetitive use of the oxymoron, "a terrible beauty is born," which Yeats uses to impart to the reader a sense of hidden conflict beneath the interpersonal being of one's intellect.
The oscillation between the superlative world, the spiritual, and the imposing pull of the real world shapes Yeats's complex idea of time and cyclical patterns highlighted within Laid in the Swan. This myth has parallels with the Christian Holy Spirit, represented as a dove, and the idea of a virgin birth. The imagery of the swan is antithetical to the dove in the New Testament, also highlighting the difference between the violence of leaders' experience to the peace and sacrifice promised by the Christian age.
The reconceptualization of the historic context of this symbolic poem symbolises the development of social opinions regarding events of a wide subject matter. The matter in question is most commonly drawn upon is the British occupation of Ireland. Ireland, of course, became part of the UK around 2 centuries before with the Act of the Union. Noted in this poem as being more brutal in the early days of the 20th century. The ideology surrounding the majestic yet intimidating aspects of the dove's feathered glory draws upon the occupation of not only Ireland the country, but Ireland the culture and Ireland the people. It's seen as a privilege in the world because England at the time was considered a major superpower, considering that it was around the time of World War I. It draws upon the occupation as sort of a privilege. The changing opinions regarding the essence of this privilege ultimately exhibits major shifts in the critical analysis of these texts. Although the poem was considered controversial for certain lines, the bluntness of these lines, such as loosening thighs, recount history unambiguously and is a sign of Yeats' ultimate commitment to the accuracy in his poetry.
The inspiration of the poem among school children was a visit to St. Oberon's School in Waterford, which Yeats made in 1926, in his official capacity as a senator of the Irish Free State. Yeats wrote this poem to acknowledge the delicate and weak condition of humanity and reflect on whether life was well spent. Particularly with his early love toward God, Yeats is frightened by the inevitability of death and willing to agonize over the value of life. I walk through the long schoolroom question. The long schoolroom can be symbolized as him walking down memory lane, questioning whether the choices he made through his life has been the right ones or wrong. Yeats' reflections on Maud Gonne is also seen where he wonders if she stood at that age, comparing the young child in front of him to the young Maud Gonne he had once loved. The effect of this reflection of Maud Gonne is evident as he states, and thereupon my heart is driven wild. Thereupon my heart is driven wild. She stands before me as a living child. where he uses personification in the description of his heart to signify the major role she played through his life. This allows the audience to gain an insight into the life of Yeats to help stimulate their own personal self-reflections.
Among School Children is one of Yeats's most famed poems, due in part to its representation of the older Yeats reflecting on his past youth. However, it is also one of his most famed because of his experimentation with poetic form and representation. The poem is written in the form of an ottava rima, an 8-stanza poem, each with 8 lines, with regular rhythm and a regular rhyme scheme. A, B, A, B, A, B, C, C. I know it's a little bit hard to kind of comprehend at the moment, but that's the regular rhyme scheme. This form was traditionally used for heroic or epic poetry at the time that it was first used by Italian poet Giovanni Boccaccio in the 14th century. In addition, the poem's inherent negativity in portraying life, mortality, and burdening experiences man cannot escape surfaces, exemplified through the diction of betrayal and the sibilance of sleep, shriek, and struggle to escape in the 5th stanza. Furthermore, the poem is highly introspective, as the persona laments old age. The adjectives ghostly, bottom, and fiddlestick, reducing the achievements of the philosophers Plato, Aristotle, and Pythagoras to being destroyed by their mortality. Perhaps, too, this is also an acknowledgement by Yeats that both he and his writings will someday demise for good. Despite all his power as a poet, he is unable to outlast time and death. In the last stanza, Yeats grapples with his own ideas of the relationship between body and soul, with the poem his medium by which to call on audiences to make this decision for themselves. The final stanza begins with Yeats stating that labour is blossoming or dancing, where the body is not bruised to pleasure, soul, insinuating that the effects of time are not felt where youth and vitality is kept in spirit, and suggests a separation of body and soul. The poem, however, ends on a typically Yeatsian note with a rhetorical question posed to the audience, as he asks, how can we know the dancer from the dance? While this can be read in a number of ways, this can suggest a lack of separation or individuality of the human person, but rather that all humans are structures in the overbearing existence of time, doomed to die. Yeats calls on his audiences to read his poems in relation to their own worldviews, transposing an inherent ability for his text to be relevant to contemporary audiences. Thank you.